if you film random people on the sidewalk, eventually someone's going to call the cops on you and bam, you got your content. It's just all people trying to use others to make money.
YouTube is burning down.
I think that YouTube should start regulating a lot more like the traditional television industry. I can think of lots of small companies that have at least one HR representative who's just there to figure out if people are being treated right. YouTube is just going to exist as essentially the most powerful television station in the world. They've got this extraordinary amount of power, but almost no regulation on the people who create it.
But is anything really going to change?
I think that...
Dear YouTube, what's happening? Every day I'm reading headlines about canceled creators, fake content this, react creators that. Today we're bringing in Scumbag Dad, one of the sharpest satire-focused creators, to talk about what is happening to YouTube and how to fix it, why he thinks Congress should regulate creators, and how he's rebranding himself going forward. If you're a creator watching this, my company Karat just rolled out a new perks program for creators where you get 50% off on Epidemic Sound, 35% off on CapCut, and more. Details on this later and link in description below.
Yes, it is good to be back.
The only guest we've ever brought back 3 times.
Ooh, feels good.
Yeah, your sparkling personality, the fierce mullet.
Nothing quite like the third time, baby. Nothing quite like the third time.
Especially when the crusade you've been fighting against fake content, I think the tides are turning. YouTube is burning down, Brad.
Yes, YouTube has finally started the real discussion about sincerity versus non-sincerity. And the tendrils of this have spread so far that I feel like I'm fighting the goddamn Hydra. Because every time I sort of roast or satirize one of these guys or even call them out straight, 2, 3 more pop up. And it's very difficult to even conceptualize because I get 10, 12 DMs a day of just new accounts doing different things that are still exploitative, or even foreign accounts that are now copying the American ones that have done it. Bear in mind, every little bit of disingenuous content that you see on the internet has basically the same major elements, and that is they need to use other people and they need a shield. Those are the 2 things they really need.
What do you mean by shield?
The shield is the thing they tell you they're doing versus the thing they're actually doing. So the shield,
the morally defensible pretense.
Correct. The shield is the morally defensible pretense where if someone attacks them, via critique, what are they going to say in their own defense, or what are their fans going to say? The First Amendment auditors, they want an excuse to film people flipping out. They use the First Amendment as their shield. I'm not filming strangers and antagonizing them on purpose. I'm defending my rights. I'm testing my rights. But if you're testing your rights, why are all the videos the same? Why is it always crazy Karen doesn't know her rights? Because the Karen that they've put in the video, that woman is the actual star. That is what brings the clicks, because they don't have personalities. They don't have any skills. They don't have any talents. They just figure out, I need to use strangers, but I can't just film random people. I need a reason. So if you film random people on the sidewalk, eventually someone's going to call the cops on you and bam, you got your content. You don't even need to write a script. And who's a better actor than someone who's not acting? Nobody. It's
authentic.
It's completely authentic and it's real life. The one that I'm on now sort of is the hidden camera glasses Rizz guys.
What's this?
So they sort of advertise that they're turning on hidden glasses and they're talking to girls to show their audience of men how easy it is if you just have confidence.
Yeah,
they're
it's
like
an empowering message. You can do it too.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, they want to make money. They want to make money. Their account serves as a funnel to drive people to their course, to drive people to their Instagram account. And they're all selling like these like one-on-one training sessions. But at the end of the day, the women that they film are essentially free actors. They turn on the camera, they film the women. I've seen 2 different situations where the women got into the comments and were mad. They were like, hey, you shouldn't have done this. I was on my way to somewhere. I was just being polite. I didn't want to give you my number. One of the guys deleted the video. And that really, it makes you think at the end of the day. Again, they're trying to capitalize on the lonely man dollar. The lonely man dollar is so powerful. So they want that lonely man dollar. So how can they get it with no talent? Well, you got to film pretty girls. Well, you don't have the talent or ability to talk pretty girls into it, and you don't have any actresses, or maybe you don't have the money to hire people. So you turn on the hidden camera and you just go. And some of the people in the comments, they'll say, well, these guys are showing us how to be confident.
That's the pretense. That's the shield.
Correct. If I'm out at a bar with you and I say, I'll give you $500 to talk to that girl, that would motivate you, right? That would probably motivate you way better than me just chatting with you and giving you confidence. That's why they have so much confidence, is because they know if they get a good reaction or even a bad reaction, as long as the girl is presentable enough on camera, they will make a
I kind
profit.
of love that, because you're saying even the shield that they might use to justify what they're doing, oh, we're teaching people how to approach and how to become more in tune individuals. Well, actually, that's not even true, because in the back of their heads, they're like, this is for clicks, views, and money.
Correct.
And when that's your driving motivation, it's so much easier to put yourself in potentially uncomfortable situations, but it's not really authentic.
Yeah. They're defended, in a way, they're defended by the existence of the camera, because they can pick and choose which clips to show that make them look the best or that make the women look the worst. And they have no lack of people. They need to just go to a semi-crowded area, city or shopping center, and just roll with it. It's a very devious look at it, because the audience doesn't care about the subject. They only care about how the influencer makes them feel. When these women voice their concern, they are shouted down in the comments section. They say, oh, well, F you, bitch. He is allowed to film. There's no expectation of privacy in public.
Yeah.
You should be nicer to him. They're not understanding, like, that's actually that's quite rude. You are presenting yourself as something, and it turns out you're trying to make a profit. And it's the fact that the fans of that type of content can't put together the connection. That's a real symbol. People tell me, they're like, oh, well, it's like idiocracy. People are getting dumber and dumber. I actually think it's worse. I think they know it's wrong and choose to ignore those elements. I think that people are aware in some primal part of their brain that they're being lied and deceived. But when the influencer presents them a worldview they agree with or they can rally behind, they're going to get emotionally upset when somebody like me criticizes or attacks them. Yeah.
It reminds me, there's this biologist named E.O. Wilson, and he says, our brains are Paleolithic, our institutions medieval, but our technology's godlike. And what he means by that, we're the same goddamn monkeys we've always been, to your point. Are we all necessarily getting dumber, or are we just the same monkeys motivated by a desire for power, sex, and love, who've now been enabled by these technologies where I can just get clicks and views as the creator, and as the viewer, I get to feel myself in the situation, feel like I'm learning and getting something, such that when the reality of how this little, funnily enough, Darman-esque situation was created, nobody wants to accept that the emperor has no clothes. In some ways, you're describing a bastardization or corruption of the original creator motive. The original creator motive, you make something because you have a perspective you want to bring to the world. For example, you yourself have shared on the last podcast, one of the reasons why you've leaned so hard into Scumbag Dad is a desire to teach others to be honest based off your own learnings on what you've gone through in your life. Views and clicks and the income you make are part of a means to support that end. But when you look at this new generation, of your point, the end goal in itself is just the views and clicks.
Hi, hello, wait, don't go anywhere. If you're a creator, you are not going to want to miss this. My name's Quinn, I'm a YouTuber, and I also work here at Karat, and I'm here because Karat is launching a new perks program for creators. If you set up a business bank account with us, you get access to thousands of dollars of perks from your favorite creator tools. We have discounts like 50% off on Epidemic Sound, $100 back into your account from Spotter if you sign up through Karat, 50% off on a Notion Pro subscription, and so much more. The team here has worked incredibly hard to put together the best set of perks for a creator business, and I personally think that they have done an amazing job. Again, we are talking thousands of dollars of value here, so if you don't want to miss out on that, you can sign up today through the link in the description. Now, back to the podcast.
But when you look at this new generation, of your point, clones trying to imitate Mr. Beast, the end goal in itself is just the views and clicks.
Correct. The passion is for the numbers.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with, oh, I can't wait to direct a cool scene or use this weird camera technique. It's just, if it doesn't get the numbers, it doesn't matter. And I think that we're only seeing like the tip of the iceberg. I feel like as we grow older, you know, as this new generation takes over and then their kids who are addicted to iPads, you know, they now start to make content. We're going to start to see new levels of sort of like deceit and depravity. And what I'm learning is that people still don't care. And enough of them still don't care that they will allow their heroes and their gods to exploit others as long as it makes them feel good. And I feel like on a macro level, when you have a billion people who forgive these small indiscretions, these lies, these mistreatments. That's how you get almost every piece of corruption in our politics. You know, if your favorite YouTuber lies regularly and you just forgive them for it, why wouldn't you forgive your politician? You know what I mean? If you don't hold someone accountable for their crimes, independent of the good things they do, what's to say you're going to do it in your personal life, in your business life? If you think that the good outweighs the bad when you donate money, then you could justify ripping off your friends or ripping off business partners. It's almost like the son of the grind set mentality has like blossomed into this fungus that's leaked itself all over culture. And, you know, maybe it's more of an American thing, because I do hear that, you know, kindness content is not legal in, you know, for instance, Germany.
Sure.
You cannot film a person without their consent and post them in a for-profit situation. And I feel like maybe it's a little bit of the American mentality. And if we could just stop that, we would hold other people in our lives accountable. You know, we would be more cognizant of our fellow man. Every time you hear about someone ripping somebody else off, that might not have happened if they hadn't grown up idolizing people who rip others off. If you idolize Logan Paul and you watch CoffeeZilla's videos about how Logan Paul ripped off everybody on CryptoZoo, what's your take? Do you say, wow, Logan Paul's actually not a good person? Or do you say, what a cunning businessman? He made enough money that he can afford to sue CoffeeZilla and still be a billionaire.
It just becomes an expense.
That's like the guy who would park his Lambo illegally every day just because he can afford the ticket. It doesn't make you a good person. You're still like a dick. And I find it very unfortunate, because the bigger our population gets, the more we should work together and understand each other as people.
Yeah, I never thought that the acceptance of dishonest content is but a symptom of a mentality spreading to culture and politics. To your earlier question, I actually do believe it's worldwide. There's an influencer named Phidias who creates content similar to Mr. B. He actually won elected office. He ran for office in his country.
There you go.
And off the strength of his YouTube views and the supposed good he was doing, actually won the race.
Yeah, okay.
So this is hardly only American. And I'm also hearing there was a hope maybe on our last podcast, our first and second ones, that if people could just see awareness, sunlight is the best disinfectant. And now, oh gosh, people know, but is anything really going to change?
I think that YouTube should start regulating a lot more like the traditional television industry. I can think of lots of small companies that have at least one HR representative who's just there to figure out if people are being treated right.
This point is so fascinating that YouTube should do more. It makes me think of 3 points. The first is, for a while, Meta actually had its own advisory regulatory board trying to determine, hey, this person posted some misleading news on Facebook. It could affect an election. What should we do about it? The second is it begins to like position this private company as like an arbiter of like regulation. And the third, so I recently visited the White House. Joey B hosted a little creator summit where...
Oh, how's Joe doing?
Yeah, he's doing good. You know, he actually came out and he spoke with us. And the very first thing he said was, I'm going to need a job soon. I hear you creators are a $250 billion industry. Can I come work for you? Don't worry, I've got 800 years of experience.
That's funny.
Oh, it's like, all right, we like a self-aware guy. You know, he's aware of his flaws. So, for instance, we've previously talked about how you've been effectively banned on TikTok.
I'm not. I mean, I'm doing okay on TikTok now, but my old content was
your old
banned,
content.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's because of TikTok's attempt to do what you've described YouTube could do. Try and moderate content. But their moderation tools weren't good enough. They were taking down content like yours that actually probably would be beneficial for people to watch. The question is, okay, if you're a platform, we need to moderate. How do you get good enough to stop what is potentially bad, but allow through what is potentially good?
I think in order to develop a good program for that, you would honestly need a wide range of people to write up sort of a new document.
Yeah.
To have representatives from, you know, different sides of the world. I mean, obviously it won't be perfect, but it will be refined over time as new situations and the technology improves. It's just like any book of laws. Like it starts with a bunch of people, you know, who don't really know what's up, writing a bunch of laws. And then as time goes on, some of those rules are effective at helping protect the consumer and the creators. But some of those laws may need refinement. Maybe they're too heavy-handed. And you have to have an understanding of each other to discuss that. Because otherwise, YouTube is just going to exist as essentially the most powerful television station in the world. You know, I don't know what the revenue looks like, but I'm sure YouTube fleeces Netflix and HBO Max.
Yeah.
Is that accurate? So they've got this extraordinary amount of power, but almost no regulation on the people who create it. When you make a movie, it's very expensive. Some people say it's because you got to pay everybody this certain negotiated amount to stay fair. So when you have a situation where paying fairly is going to cut into profits, what can you do? You can just move all that money into YouTube where nobody's regulating you, and you can keep all the money for yourself, reinvest it into other projects.
It's an arbitrage play today.
Yeah. I remember a friend of mine who was trying to raise $500,000 to make a movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's crazy to make one movie. He's like, yeah, well, we got to pay this and this and rent the location. And as he was breaking down the cash for me, I was thinking like, why don't we just make like 500 really good TikToks? You know what I mean? If I spent $1,000 on every TikTok, like I can't even imagine what kind of stuff
how much
I'd come
do
up
you
with.
spend on a standard TikTok?
I don't spend a lot on my TikToks.
Yeah,
so
I figure.
usually the cost is props that I've already bought, you know, and usually if I'm doing a big group thing, I'll take everybody out to lunch or drinks.
Take us out to dinner. You've noticed this.
Yeah. And that, but bear in mind, like I don't make good money on all my TikToks.
Right.
I tank a lot. You know what I mean? But the fact that people keep showing up and hanging out with me is because they feel like their time is worth it. They get featured in the video. I always try to give everybody a good feature spot. And then at the very least, if the video flops, I can say, well, at least you got lunch out of this, or you got drinks, or we made new friends. You know, I try to keep my shoots extremely casual and extremely quick because I'm not like a massive corporation.
Would you ever scale? Because you now are effectively a full-time creator.
Yes, I am effectively, for all intents and purposes, I'm a full-time creator with a side job as an orthodontist.
Oh, so you still do some dentistry
Yeah.
work.
Well, like I always said, it's very dumb for me to leave my normal career because I like it, and all this stuff could vaporize at any point.
And it enables you to avoid being sucked into this trap of I need views for money.
Correct. I go through flop eras like once every 3 months where all the views tank. And at those times I say, you know what? Even if all this all goes away, I've got my normal job. I can still keep my family, you know, fed and safe and put my son through college and everything's fine. And like, if I've had my run, I've had my run and it's good. But it does give me the ability to not really compromise, because there are dark moments where I think I'm like, I could just strap on the hidden camera and go, but I don't need to because I'm not financially dependent on this. I always tell all my friends, if you see me non-ironically filming a stranger, you know my bills have gotten too high.
That we need Scumbag 2.0 to call it Scumbag 1.0.
Yeah, but it's much tougher for me to come up with new riffs satirizing people because that takes much more effort than just turning on the camera and letting it roll. You know, I noticed that my fans, you know, I recently did a whole bit on people who order like 500 burgers for the homeless, and my fans are like, hey man, you're doing the same joke over and over. I'm like, do you realize the guys I'm making fun of have done this 100 times? I'm like, this is after my maybe 6th or 7th video. And I'm like, guys, come on, give me a little bit of a freaking break here.
I have seen those comments. They're like, we've seen this before. And it's like, okay, well, I'm trying.
I think they're expecting more of me. And to be fair, that's somewhat a good thing. It does force me to evolve. And I will very, very soon. That's just kind of where I'm at right now.
Funnily, just like there's a wave of YouTubers quitting 6-8 months ago, now there's a wave of YouTubers being canceled, somewhat vindicating the points you've made all along. Has that changed the way you think of your content? Now there's more awareness of your crusade. It
has, in the sense that I think I can relax a little bit because now the discussion is happening without me. You know, at my heart, I want to start doing more regular style skits. I've entertained the idea of doing a reboot of the Scumbag Dad series now that I've got a lot of resources in California. So even today, I'm organizing for the next step. You know, I've got a podcast with Stanzi Potenza that I've been running weekly.
What prompted it? Because you were primarily known for short form podcasts. I've had the privilege of getting to do this with you a couple of times. You're great at it. What motivated you to start one of your own? And why Stanzi?
Stanzi is one of my best friends in LA. She's amazing. She's very funny. And she was running a podcast that ended and she wanted to start a new one. And her management was like, hey, do you have a person you'd like to invite as co-host? And she chose me. And so we just filmed our like 13th and 14th episode. And I'm very happy with the way it's going. I just let the conversation talk naturally. Like that podcast is mostly based on party subjects and like funny stuff. Like when I hang out with you, I know I'm like, I got to get a little bit critical because people don't ever see me be serious about this stuff unless I'm on the Karat podcast or unless I'm tweaking out on my podcast and like I leak and just go on a little Brad rant. Like everybody who's an influencer is a liar.
And then people are like, oh, there's thoughts between what he does. I think the first pod we ever did, I think people were like, oh, wow, he's not crazy.
Yeah, they were very shocked that I wasn't just an unhinged psychopath. But I do want to spend more time at home, like hanging out with the baby and my wife,
Hannah.
And I feel like the best way to do that is to start refining what I'm doing, record more podcasty stuff and do something a little bit different because I mean, I've made my point a million times that influencers are liars and they actually hate their audience. I'll probably still make that point a little bit more. But I'm going to be experimenting quite a bit in the next couple of months to try and find a different way.
We're seeing the start of the scumbag creative renaissance.
I hope so.
Part 1 has been done. I saw the other day you were asking your followers on Instagram, hey, I might need to rebrand from Scumbag Dad. Shockingly, not the best name to track brand sponsors.
No, it's a terrible name. My manager told me straight up, you need to change your name. I'm not making any headway because, and why would he make headway? He's going to the table with like Marriott and he's saying, all right, well, here are my influencers. It's Joe Travels, Lucy's Blog Life, and Scumbag Dad. And
they're like, I've got piece of shit Pete over here.
And they're like, what's that one? And he's like, well, the name's meant to be ironic. He's actually very, no. Like these guys don't have time to like hear my manager out.
They're
just gonna go with the other people because they're a little scared of like what I'm gonna do. They look at my content, they're like, there sure are a lot of drug dealing jokes. I lost a commercial acting gig because of that.
No.
Yeah. And what's so funny is I took the audition and I got a call back, and I'm not like a great actor, but the ad was basically a fourth wall break Scumbag Dad style video.
That's perfect.
And the director liked me. He was like, I was hoping to get you in on this. You know what? Your content actually inspired this ad. So I did it. And then an hour later, they send me a message and they go, yeah, well, you didn't pass our safety check. Like, yeah, the people here, they checked up on you. And I'm like, what was it? And they're like, well, you did this sloppy toppy joke and that's not really
You did a lot of sloppy
safe.
toppy jokes.
And I'm like, oh, come on. But I get it. Like I signed up for this. I'm not like crying about it because I do think that's funny.
Yeah.
He does say that if I just change the name, that'll make them look a little bit less critically at me. Like, if I'm just Brad Padre, they may not be looking for something evil.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if I'm Scumbag Dad, they might go through a couple of videos.
Marriott has to think, hey, we'd like to announce a brand collaboration. Marriott and Scumbag Dad.
It doesn't
to
work.
The millions of Americans who don't know who you are.
It doesn't work. And I'm just dragging my heels on this one because it's such an emotional move. I'm scared that in a way I'm like kicking down a lot of what I've worked for because I'm worried that the name is sort of tied to me making stuff. Once I become Brad Padre or whatever it ends up being, will I lose my fucking edge is the question. I thought about doing KindbagDad.
KindbagDad.
Or like DMD Motivator.
What's DMD Motivator?
So that's a play on MD Motivator. MD Motivator is like one of those bigger kindness channels, and DMD Motivator I think plays because I am a dentist. My degree is a DMD, and I'm a demotivator. Like I'm trying to demotivate.
Works on multiple layers.
So I really like that one. But Hannah and Stanzi said like you gotta like start carving out a non-antagonistic element of your personality if you're ever going to sort of get to the next level. And I've realized that they are correct. You know what I mean? I can still be funny and subversive, but I've sort of hit like, how many dark humor channels do you know on TikTok that have like over 4 million?
Not many. No.
They all get banned or they end up shifting gears at
running
some
out
point.
of their initial points. Yeah.
And I think that's sort of a natural progression. I could still do violent jokes, but I feel like in order for me to get to the next level, I do need to refine the brand, and so that's going to happen really soon.
This is your filthy Frank to Joji moment.
Correct. I really, I think we've discussed that before, but that moment's coming a lot quicker than I thought it would.
It's funny too because in LA we just call you Scumbag. Like, we know your actual name, Brad. But we also just say, hey, Scumbag. And we're talking to you. You've identified it.
True. It is very funny that when I'm not around, people are like, "Scumbag's coming over." Like, is Scumbag on its
They're like,
way,
"Who?"
or is Scumbag Dad?
You've
And then they
become
just,
the mask.
yeah, no, I've become the mask, and it will take a little bit of work to sort of get through that. But I'm not really worried. Like, I've got a lot of good people who support me these days,
And your followers get it too. When I started posting clips of you on Reddit, I'd say, Scumbag Dad on whatever, and the initial set of comments would always be like, why are you calling him a scumbag?
Oh,
and then we'd get
yeah.
commenters be like, no, it's like his thing.
Yeah, that's
So
his
I
name.
saw also in your Instagram story, you talked about like, someone was like, oh, why don't you call it like Brad Padre comedy? And you're like, no, it can't be too clear.
Yeah.
This is satirical.
Yeah,
That's the edge.
Yeah, if I call myself Brad Padre Comedy, then if I do decide to do a piece of satire and they see the word comedy, immediately they're going to know where this is going.
It's too clear.
And it's not gonna work.
Is there a world where you envision scaling into Brad Padre Scumbag Dad Studios?
Well, I do feel like scaling it up into some sort of higher budget studio production is the eventual answer. I've got a group chat going with a couple of comics where we want to do like one big day in a professional studio with like nice sets and stuff. And we all collaborate together and like we create some sort of a super group of, like TikTok comic people. Whether or not that actually solidifies is, up in the air right now, because coordinating schedules is tough. But I feel like the next logical evolution is to do more skit-based comedy that's not just filmed on a cell phone.
Right. And not just on your initial message around, hey, influencers, you can't always believe what you see.
Yeah, that's true. And at the end of the day, it's not that I suddenly love influencers. It's just that now I feel like the conversation has evolved where I don't feel like I need to be as contemptuous and angry all the time. If we're lucky, we'll see maybe one or two laws start to come into place that will change people's minds.
So it's a mix of the regulatory piece around the laws. It's a mix around people being more aware, willing to call them out. It's a mix, I hope, too, on the technological side. There's been so much work around making it easier to make content and replicate content from an AI POV. I hope also there's more use of technology to moderate and catch things.
I think AI is going to give us some really interesting opportunities to test where people's moral boundaries lie. I think that if we create, AI that is indistinguishable from real life, I think that will actually be the elimination of kindness content, if that makes sense.
Because you can just use an AI.
Because you can just use an AI homeless person. Like all of the sort of moral questions will be wrapped up, because if you can get a successful channel that helps AI poor people, then it will sort of eliminate the market for that type of content. AI, there's already AI like thirst trappers and OnlyFans models.
100%.
And the fact that they allegedly make money is completely psychotic to me. But the fact that they do means that AI models and AI characters will start to infiltrate the spaces at a very high level. And bear in mind, remember what we first talked about is these YouTubers and these creators, they don't care about being good artists. They want to make money.
Profit motive.
Developing an unlimited series of videos with an AI model. I mean, you could just plug in, say, ChatGPT, give me 1,000 thirst trappy scripts. Now plug it into this hot model AI girl we've got. All right, good. We got 1,000 videos generating now. We'll post each one every Monday. All right, create a second account. This one will be of a different ethnicity, have a different voice. 1,000 scripts. You know what I mean? I spoke to an animator a couple years ago who was sort of laughing about how easy his job was, because he would make these really shitty viral videos that would sometimes be used as ads where like a ninja would like push a boulder over a river and like save a damsel, right? And then they would generate like dozens of them where like ninja is replaced by a knight, knight is replaced by a soldier, soldier is replaced by a king.
Like a mobile game-esque.
So yeah, very mobile game-esque type ads, and they would just run them. And whichever one performed the best, they would now take that one and they would change the other characters or change the map. And there was no care about like art. There was no care about like making it better. There was just, we want to get as many views as quickly as possible. We don't want to pay any artists. So like, this was even before AI hit what it is now. They had sort of like random image generators. These guys, they don't care about being good artists. They just care about making money. And the problem is that when you have a whole generation doing that, the people who just care about money will outperform the artists volume-wise. If I'm an animator and I am proud of my ability to draw a drawing and to figure out how to draw it, it's going to take me probably a decent amount of time to create an animation of my character doing something. Whereas the guy who doesn't give a shit, he is going to plug a stolen character into AI that uses stolen processes to make 100 animations in the time that the first guy only did one. And because algorithmic content is the way it is, all that second guy needs is one to pop off. And he has accomplished the same goal as that other person who did it in many, many hours.
Would you ever use AI in this way or differently?
I used AI just as a test already. I didn't really particularly like it, but I do understand that it's one of those things that it may be tough to outcompete, right? Like as more people enter the space with AI, it's going to be tough for anyone to outperform someone who's primarily an AI content creator. And as tens and hundreds of thousands of them enter the space, I think we're going to see a shift where regular people who draw and regular artists are going to have to learn to use AI to their advantage to the point where everyone's competing to see who's better at using AI. In a weird way, it's like the consolidation of art. If you're going to be an artist in this day and age, I feel like it is absolutely necessary for you to master one of the short form platforms, whether it's TikTok, YouTube Shorts, or Reels, whether you're an artist, whether or not you're a baker, whether or not you're a musician. No matter what your art is, if it is something that can be described as a creative process, I feel like if you don't pop off on one of the platforms, you aren't going to make any money, right? Like that's how I feel. I could be wrong. But as things evolve, AI music is becoming extremely advanced. AI photo and video editing is becoming extremely advanced. It's now going to come to the point where short form content is going to be dominated by people who use AI. And now the only difference between people is going to be who uses the AI better. Now, I'm sure there are going to be ways to tweak it. Sure, there's going to be ways to maybe draw your own character and put it into an animation. But now it's almost going to consolidate. Did you ever read Ray Kurzweil?
Singularity, right?
Singularity.
That's his piece.
So Ray Kurzweil talks about how technology will eventually advance so fast that it'll become like this parabolic linear curve where it gets so powerful so fast that we don't even conceptualize the speed of it anymore.
Yeah,
right?
and that eventually we actually merge with technology.
With the technology, yeah.
Yes.
And then we choose when we die. It's a very utopian way of looking at technology. I mean, in a vacuum, the theory makes perfect sense. It may just take a lot longer than he thought. Right? I feel like the slope is a lot slower.
I think he was hoping this would happen before he dies.
Correct. But the same could be said about sort of entertainment and information technology. As the technological boundaries to making quality content get lower, cameras get better, AI gets better, music production gets better, we're going to hit this point where you can make anything you want in seconds to your ideal vision, right? I want a song that sounds like this with this voice with these lyrics. Plugged it into AI, there's the song, it's perfect. Well, now you've got a billion other people also doing the same thing. So now you've got camera quality is irrelevant because every camera is perfect. Music is irrelevant because you can make whatever song you want, right? So now the act of creating the artistic thing, whether it's a drawing or song or whatever, is now equally accessible to all people.
Yeah, it's commoditized.
It's commoditized. So now the only difference between people online is going to be just the raw personality or even just the physical body. Now, there's dystopian ways of looking at that. But if I'm in a world where I'm trying to be a piano player, in a world where everyone else is going to be using AI to generate piano songs, I'm going to get absolutely washed out because there's tens of thousands of them producing hundreds of songs faster than me. Maybe I could get one song to pop off, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to be able to compete with the sheer volume of the other guys.
You're describing the artistic or creative equivalent of you walk into the supermarket and there's 15 different brands of potato chips and they're all the same fucking bag made by a white label manufacturer just with different framing, packaging, and marketing.
Correct.
See, I hear that. I'm scared. That doesn't sound good.
Well, what it is it's not good. It's very bad for sort of artistic and cultural progress because it's going to feed the low serotonin threshold for clicks. Challenging your audience won't be important anymore because in order to survive in this new environment, you're going to need 1 billion views. You know what I mean? This day and age, if I get 1 million views in a week, I'm like, you know what? I'm cool. All the bills are paid. Like, all I need is once a week, I need something to hit. But 1 million views in a week 10 years ago, if you asked me, if you told me I would be getting 1 million views on anything per week, I'd be like, that's crazy. Am I rich? Am I like crazy rich? Nope. You're just a regular C-level celebrity, just sort of schlubbing by on TikTok. That would be crazy to me. And follower inflation and number inflation is definitely a thing. So I feel like by the time my son has grown up, if he doesn't have 5 million followers, that's not what I call career money. I used to say that if you had 1 million followers on Instagram, you were probably making career money.
You're at like 980,000.
I am almost at 1 million followers on Instagram, but I still feel like that's not nearly as relevant or powerful as it was 4 years ago. You know, because I see the money coming in. Threads doesn't pay well. You know, the sponsorship money hasn't, you know, quadrupled because of my following. And so the threshold for earning a living doing this is constantly going up. So you constantly need to be gaining followers. Otherwise, you're going to be left in the dust and not be anybody.
It's fascinating, number one, how little a follower begins to matter.
Yeah.
Number two, also to your point, if AI commoditizes creation, really the only thing you can bring is your personality. That's funny because there's been a wave of cancellations partially due to quote unquote manipulated fake content. There's been a second wave around personality, around Cody Co, around Dr. Disrespect, when the person making the content, their personal lives, which ironically is what made their content successful in the first place, is now getting in the way of their success too.
Yes, that is something that I don't think will ever go away. I feel like in this day and age, texting or DMing a minor with romantic intentions is really the only surefire way to take down someone of great social power. And I don't think that's going to change because culturally we look at pedophiles as like the most vile in the world.
With disgust.
With disgust. And some people are even, you know, capitalizing on that. They've created their own pedophile catcher channels where they go and they just beat the crap out of them. And the audience loves it because they get to feel
and
the
now it goes back to this
indignation.
weird kindness content thing again.
Well, yeah, I mean, in a way, it is the same. They aren't, I believe that their main goal is to make money. They found a shield. They found a way to film people who don't deserve rights and deserve to be arrested and beat up. You know, but I read an article recently, I'd have to look into it, but I read an article that that says one of the YouTubers got stabbed by the pedophile.
Insane.
And one of them, like the pedophile brought a gun, because if you're just caught by one of these shows, your life is over. I would imagine that some of these guys are going to get hurt and killed because they're acting like vigilantes. It takes a lot to see because they are at the end of the day doing a good deed for society by eliminating pedophiles. They're still using the pedophiles as a shield to make money off people who never agreed to be on camera. Look, I'm not saying pedophiles deserve rights or deserve a second chance. I'm not saying they don't deserve to be punched in the face, but it takes a lot to sort of look at this content and admit these guys just want to make money. Yeah. They want to give you something clickbaity. They want to give you an emotional rush. If it's right, it's right. But don't pretend like they have passion for catching criminals.
It's so fascinating. So you're making a few points here. Number one, I initially started this saying, well, you know, personality, which becomes more important in a world of AI, is also what can be your downfall. And your response was, yeah, but like there's a pretty high bar for how bad you need to be as a personal figure for it to really cancel you. One of them being messaging minors. Two, even the exposure of that brings in questions around kindness content. Kind of leads me sitting here to like point number three. It's like, it almost feels like if anyone's trying to make money from their content, you have to trust them that much less.
I think if they're trying to make money by doing something that represents their ability alone, then it's fine. If you're doing comedy skits, you can say, I want to make money. If you're doing dances, so what? Yes, I want to make money. Athletic ability, you know, showing off trick shots. There's nothing wrong with making money doing something that you're good at. My problem is with making money with other people who otherwise would not agree to be in the video. The women who are being filmed by the Rizz cams, it is unfair to them for you to be using them in your for-profit schemes. Lots of places have laws against this. If I'm working for Applebee's marketing and I roll into an Applebee's location and start filming a customer and I haven't informed them and I put it on a commercial, they can sue me due to the various laws about releasing people for commercial purposes. When you put someone on your for-profit YouTube account, you are filming them for commercial purposes. There is, if you have made $1 off that, they have contributed to a for-profit endeavor. And YouTube does not have those regulations.
Yeah.
So Chili's can't do it.
But a creator, just a person, actually can.
Correct. So they eschew that entire law. And the people who feel exploited by these things, like the random shoppers and the women on the Rizz cams, they have no legal recourse.
Wow. I think you've really addressed the root of all of this. We're in a weird place where people are acting like companies, but aren't held to the same standards.
Correct. Yes, that's absolutely 100% yes. People are acting like corporations, but they have no regulatory rules telling them what they can and can't do. And so the people they exploit have no option. They have no union to go to. They have no lawyer defense, at least in America.
Especially, and I think this is what I was hinting at regarding the profit motive. It's almost like, yeah, it's like an individual, make money, showing off your art. But once you're a company that's making money, it's a little different.
There's a guy named Josh Lil J who does these videos where he gives like 50 sandwiches to the homeless. And he has like a nasty history of being rude to homeless people. He got a hot dog place review bombed because they didn't play games with him. He caused a fight outside of a convenience store. And there's a woman who's interviewed on another channel who says he paid her money to get in the dumpster for the video, and that he gave her $100 and then took most of the money back after the cameras weren't rolling. Like, he's a bad person. But people aren't willing to sort of listen to that point of view because they look at the woman that he exploited and they're like, whatever, she should be happy she got anything. She's an addict trying to smear his name. Like, to me, that's super duper crazy, because when you look at all the compounding evidence, he's definitely an exploitive, weird liar. And the audience refuses to believe it because he's got the shield. The shield is the homeless people who he helps. And they always go to the same damn defenses. They're like, well, I don't see you helping other people, which is ridiculous, because whether I help someone or not is irrelevant as to whether or not somebody else is being an asshole. Like, that's not really an effective way to have a productive conversation. And then in the few times that I've told people how much work I've given away, all of a sudden it's hand waving. All of a sudden they hand wave it off. I'm like, well, actually, I'm an orthodontist who's done this and this for impoverished populations. And they're like, well, look at you waving your charity in my face. I'm like, that's crazy. That's crazy. You don't care if I've done anything. You simply want to find an attack to defend this parasocial relationship you've got going on with this jackass who keeps on filming the poor.
Let's conclude this. So what's the end game here? What do you think is going to happen to the state of creators in the next year, and for yourself, especially as you're evolving beyond the initial crusade, you're evolving beyond Scumbag Dad to Brad Padre?
I feel like my goal is to become more of a palatable figure so that I can increase the power of the channel and then actually perhaps institute some real change. I feel like one of the problems I've had is that because I present myself as, we discussed this lunatic Diogenes character, it has helped me build to a level that is very, very good. But I'm starting to hit brick walls in different areas where, because of the way I present, because I do so many sex jokes, because I do everything in this dark and devious way, I feel like my ability to really speak the message has hit a bit of a cap. And the only way to increase that is to sort of disguise myself as a more normal dude for a while, and then start to put out these ideas in a maybe more palatable way. I feel like if I was a more clean-cut influencer who maybe had a role in some sort of bigger production, then I could come back to this and reveal like, hey, I actually was just being a regular looking vlogger to fool you for the last 2 years. And now that I've got 10 million followers, I'm going to show
back to it, baby.
Like back to being a dickhead. I can't keep doing the same thing over and over. Yeah. It's unfair to my followers. And honestly, I feel like I got to evolve. At the end of the day, the conversation on the internet is changing. My satire needs to change. And I feel like going higher production very soon and changing the image is important.
See, it's the evolution from, we talk about Diogenes. We love him. The guy is renowned for peeing on himself outside.
Yep.
There's a difference between...
he loves peeing on himself outside.
Yeah, it's a thing. There's a difference between that and the next time the White House hosts creators, you should be there.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I don't get invited to these sort of standard influencer like events in culture. And I think it's because I
Yeah,
represent
because the edge.
yeah, I represent this like dark force. I met a couple people at Coachella that got invited by YouTube. They got VIP, very expensive VIP passes. And, you know, like they were very small accounts compared to mine.
But they were brand safe.
They were very brand safe. And I'll say like, you know, I think maybe it's time to just admit that being a nonconformist can only get you so far, and that for me to really disassemble the system, I'm going to have to pretend to be part of it for a certain period of time.
So if you're watching this, just know there's going to be fewer sloppy toppies. If you like them, now is your time. Get your sloppy toppy before they run out.
Yeah, get your sloppy toppy content in now before I change
And,
my
you know,
name.
it'll come back, but you know, not until we've mainstreamed brand safe dad just a little bit more. Brad, thank you so much for making time.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.